can make it there. I'll make it anywhere. It's up to you, New York, New York.
How we doing, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast here on Facebook Live and YouTube. Today, I'm going to be hitting on nights 1 and 2 of one of the WWE's flagship shows, SummerSlam. Unbelievable that it is almost up to 40 years of this event, and the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, retaining the WWE title, and without extra storylines to come immediately after that, as he and John Cena really left it all out there in a street fight, really getting the crowd engaged. Just a good overall match. Cody prevailed. I think Cena took his first steps back into being a face character again, as he and Cody Rhodes stood center of the ring, with Cena acknowledging Cody as the champion yet again. So I think the Cena heel run comes to an end without really much explanation, as the crowd really took to that moment. Cody leaves the ring. Moments later, a guy who hasn't seen any action in the WWE, hasn't been on television in quite some time, in part due to the Vince McMahon scandal, Brock Lesnar returned and swiftly, immediately hit Cena with the F5. And with John Cena's retirement tour continuing, I think all arrows point that that is going to be a rivalry yet again. John Cena oftentimes has referred to Brock Lesnar as his fiercest, toughest rival from a physical standpoint. So Lesnar back in the fold in the WWE. This is Cody's second reign as the big man in the company. I think more than anything, when Cena defeated him not long ago, it was essentially as a placeholder. You know, with Cody, they have been building many a story around him as the main man in the company. Night 1, very entertaining, as Seth Rollins cashed in his Money in the Bank after a phenomenal match between former World Heavyweight Champion Gunter and CM Punk. You know, the crowd really popped for Punk, as a big part of his storyline has been getting back to the top of the mountain, as he was gone from WWE for over a decade, spending time in the UFC as well as AEW. But, you know, WWE, this is nothing new with them with Money in the Bank. Essentially, the way Money in the Bank works, it's a pay-per-view event. You climb to grab a briefcase. That briefcase holds a contract to cash in at any time in a calendar year for any championship. And Seth Rollins cashed in. CM Punk embraced the title. He was on his knees. He couldn't move. A big curb stomp. And that was all she wrote for that. And these two on screen have been rivals for a long time. And that will be getting locked in as well. Alexa Bliss back in action with the legendary Charlotte Flair. They are now the women's tag team champions. And in my opinion, a stark contrast between the two of them as female performers, but they get the job done, and something to feel good about for fans of theirs, as the two of those women are separated by just one victory in SummerSlam history. Bliss in second, and Flair in first. And of course, I'm sure Charlotte Flair out of the ring definitely has been busy as her father Rick mourns the death of his longtime friend Hulk Hogan. And speaking of the Hulkster, nice feel good moment seeing his son Nick with his wife uh, getting embraced by the MetLife Stadium crowd as they honored his father. His father, of course, was undefeated at SummerSlam. A good overall event. I'm not one to often root for the heels. It depends. But the heel character with Dominic Mysterio and the way that he wins, cheating and doing anything he could possibly do to retain a title, reminds me so very much of a heelish Eddie Guerrero. Of course, the late, great Eddie Guerrero, very entertaining when he played the role of heel. So when I see Dominic, in the way that he's being presented, definitely something that's cool. I was a little surprised that Naomi retained the title in the women's triple threat over Io Sky and Rhea Ripley. But, Naomi has been in the company for such a long time, and this has truly been the biggest push that she has ever received. No, another great women's match. Tiffany Stratton, Jade Cargill, very good match. No surprise to me that Jade gets the dub there. But on a 10 scale, all in all, I would say that this particular SummerSlam, I'm going to give it like a solid 8. I would probably rank it slightly higher, but just for the fact that I think too many things that went down were a little too predictable. The Seth Rollins run in, I don't necessarily think I saw it on SummerSlam. I thought perhaps it may have been something that happened the next day on Raw. Usually after one of the big shows, the flagship shows, the Monday Night Raws are very, very good. But now, you have Cody back on top. You have Seth Rollins reigniting a feud with CM Punk, one that never really died. Brock Lesnar, John Cena back at it, as part of Cena's retirement tour. And it looks like Cena has the fans back on his side. So it's going to be very interesting to see how WWE programming goes into the next few months. Solo Sikoa defeated Jacob Fatu. Very physical match, steel cage match. So Solo Sikoa gets his strap back as well. But one of the hardest things in today's wrestling is keeping the surprises, being able to really shock the crowd. And I think the best moment for that during this pay-per-view undeniably was the Seth Rollins run-in. Now, of course, Paul Heyman has a lot of history with very different stars in the company, whether it be Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, CM Punk, and right now Seth Rollins. The one wrestler that he wasn't able to elevate to the top, and a lot of it had to do with writing and just the way that things were laid out, was Cesaro. Cesaro's no longer with the company. But Paul Heyman, always such an integral part of the storytelling for WWE. Get at me in the comments. Let me know what you guys think about this year's installment of SummerSlam. I'll be honest, I don't necessarily think it needed to be a 2-night event. I would have preferred a longer event, but I understand why they do it. I think it's a way to, put the fans in a position where they're looking for a little more, and to also just kind of space it out a little better. This all started with these 2-night events during the pandemic, and some of it has stayed. I never thought we'd see a time where WrestleMania would be split into 2 days, and I think there's a plus and a minus to that. But all in all, WWE, regardless of whatever time, is always doing very well in terms of making money and in terms of their ratings. So, yeah, definitely get at me in the comments. Let me know what you think about what's going on here. Before I get out of here, definitely got to dump on my New York Yankees. This is just bad. And, I want to make one thing clear. The Miami Marlins are playing much better lately. This is a young team that is not going to be in the playoffs. I mean, you never know. They could get real hot, but highly unlikely that they'll make the playoffs. But, called up quite a few young players, and they are playing very good team baseball right now. They have been a tough out for anyone running into them lately. The New York Yankees suffered a 3-game sweep in Miami, and I think it all started with the huge letdown in the 13-12 fiasco in game one. The Yankees' biggest problem this season has been that they have just not been able to consistently reveal who they're going to be. Sometimes they look like a team that will explain and remind you why they are the defending American League champions. But there are other days where you look at the base running blunders, you look at the errors, you look at just not clean baseball and making far too many mistakes, and it makes you wonder if they're even going to be a playoff team. And, I try to be fair, but at the end of the day, when team performance is going under, I'm a firm believer that two people have to be looked at. It's Brian Cashman, the general manager, because he constructed this team, and it's Aaron Boone, the guy that leads them onto the field. Of course, position coaches could also be under the radar. That should be getting a little more attention as to what's wrong. But when you make fundamental mistakes on the level that the New York Yankees have, I'm sorry, you have to look at the manager. And unlike his father, Hal Steinbrenner is not the kind of guy that would ever fire a manager in the middle of the season. However, I think the New York Yankees would be sending their fan base a very foul message if they miss the playoffs or have an early exit out of the playoffs after playing in the World Series last year and not doing a change managerially. We shall see where that all leads. I'll be honest. Right now, the Yankees are hanging on to a thread in the wild card picture. The Boston Red Sox and the Toronto Blue Jays right now are both better than the New York Yankees. And I'm going to give my man Steven Ridlon a shout out. Always having fun banter on our pages. When the Yankees were 8.5, 9 up on the Sox, I was trolling him saying, I thought the Sox were going to win the division. Well, Steven, thus far, or as I call you, Rids, your Red Sox look good, and I have to give credit where it's due. Rafael Devers was dealt to the Giants. At the time, I really believed that it was the wrong message for your team, but your team has responded, and credit is due. Credit is due to manager Alex Cora as well. You guys had traded Devers right after the Yankees got whooped up on, but Red Sox deserve some credit right now. And not only are they looking good in the wild card picture, in my genuine opinion, they have a better chance of catching Toronto in the East than the Yankees do. I'm a firm advocate that with all these wild card positions and the playoffs being more expanded in MLB, winning the division isn't everything. The Texas Rangers won as a wild card. The Washington Nationals won as a wild card. It's not everything. However, you want to be playing good baseball going into the playoffs, and that's something that the Yankees just do not do consistently enough. I don't know if it's a culture thing. I don't know if it's an attitude thing. On paper, when you look at these guys and you see all the arms in the pen, and you see two all-star caliber pitchers in Max Fried and Carlos Rodon. You got the likes of Aaron Judge in there, surrounded by the likes of Jazz Chisholm Jr., Cody Bellinger, Paul Goldschmidt, Giancarlo Stanton. There's a lot of former MVPs and one that's currently going to keep going for them in Judge, but a lot of former MVPs in that lineup. So it truly is a head scratcher as to why the chemistry just doesn't seem to be there. I will not use injuries as an excuse because the Houston Astros have missed more players than anyone, and they are playing consistent baseball all year long. And once again, it's a culture thing. Get at me in the comments. Let me know what you think has to happen. I think Derek Jeter and Alex Rodriguez kind of simplified it. They just got to play better. They got to play better, bottom line. But you do get tired of these press conferences where it seems like Aaron Boone is just tone deaf to the situation that's going on. And fans are tired of hearing that everything's all right and we're a good baseball team. As Coach Parcells says, you are what your record says you are. And the Yankees are basically a middle of the road team right now that's lucky that they got off to a decent start. Until next time, I am Richie. Our next show will be the AFC South preview. Gonna hit on Houston Texans, Jacksonville Jaguars, Tennessee Titans, Indianapolis Colts. You got a rookie Cam Ward in Tennessee. Daniel Jones, maybe the starter of the Colts, getting a second lease on life. We'll see if AR-15 could get healthy. But a lot to talk about, a lot to speak on in that division. Nick Chubb joining that division now, the longtime Brown, will be sharing the backfield with Joe Mixon. So plenty to speak on with regard to that as football season is just around the corner. If you haven't already, please make it a point to like and subscribe to the channel, the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast on YouTube. Check out the V-Mix, the Vicious Mix with my guy, Idris Salam, as well as the Basement Show with Johnny Nast. Have a great day, everyone.